expecting that to flow, I'm not sure. This brought it to our attention this morning and asked us to work it.
Off, and you can see
Northcom, this is FEMA Bach. Your mic is unmuted.
FEMA Bach, this is Northcom.
Yes, Northcom, this is FEMA Bach.
And good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 12:30 interagency video teleconference. As a final reminder, please ensure your microphones and telephones are kept on mute at all times when not speaking. For opening comments today, we'll turn to the Acting Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security, Elaine Duke. Madam Secretary.
Good morning. I know that there's a lot of operational planning that has to go on, so I'll be very brief. First of all, I'd like to thank you all for the ongoing hard work. Seeing the federal government come together like this on behalf of our country is just amazing, and the dedication and professionalism is beyond what anyone could expect. Brock and I talked with the president and the vice president this morning. They are absolutely pleased with the response. They understand that we're just getting started in many ways. They want to extend their thanks and the support of the entire federal government. At Camp David this weekend, the president talked to the entire cabinet, and we got a pledge of support across the federal government and are very pleased with that. Brock and I also talked with Governor Scott in his leading the role of our response. We reemphasized funneling needs through the NRCC, and we ask all of you to do the same and ensure that your leadership knows the importance of funneling all response through the NRCC so that we can ensure priorities are met. Governor Scott so far is thrilled with the federal support to his recovery efforts and response efforts. And really thank you to have two governors, Governor Abbott and Governor Scott, both pleased at the same time as a act of heroic efforts. We expect the recovery to be very long for this storm. I know most of you have been in the critical infrastructure updates, but the electrical power issue, it was at the 7 o'clock brief, it was 350,000 customers. Now it's 1.2 million already, and we're just hitting the southern part of the peninsula. Other than that, I know we're ready, and I know we're responding to both hurricanes at the same time. I don't have any doubt in my mind that we can support both governors, and that as a federal government, we can do this and will do this. With that, I'd like to turn it over to the administrator.
Thanks, Madam Secretary. All right. So as we watch the storm come ashore, I want to reinforce a couple things. Let's clearly communicate. That's going to be the key to our success. Let's make sure we clearly identify what the states need, and that we're verifying what we need and what we're pushing down to them. Unity of effort. Everything that we do from the federal government down to the state level needs to be run through this NRCC operation, and let's get the regions what they need. As the system's pushing through, let's make sure that we're making the final push to get all our teams and commodities into place, batten down the hatches, take care of our staff. Let's move as quickly as we can to support the life safety mission as the requests come in. Let's also make sure that we can get that first push debris out of the way to get the roadway corridors opened up so we can get life-saving, life-sustaining teams and crews down those roads. Let's also not forget, since Jose's out of the way, now we got the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico. So let's make sure that we're going to provide them a pathway to recovery today, and let's turn the corner on recovery, and we'll go from there. All right, with that, let's get down to the National Hurricane Center.
Good afternoon, everybody. Right now, the eye of Irma is located about 65 miles south-southeast of Naples, Florida. It made landfall on Cudjoe Key in the lower Florida Keys around 9:10 this morning. Still a Category 4 hurricane. It's moving off toward the north right now at about 7 miles per hour. If we look at the 5-day track, the radar loop, you can see that the eastern eye wall is very, very close to the coast of southwest Florida. In fact, an extreme wind warning has just been issued for southwest Collier County, Naples, Marco Island area, expecting to see major hurricane force winds as that eye wall brushes the coast. You can see the expansive area of rain, and if you look at the track map, you can see the initial size of the tropical storm force wind field, with tropical storm force winds extend out 220 miles from the center. Hurricane force winds about 70 miles or so. So a major wind event is underway in the state of Florida. The entire state is going to see tropical storm conditions. We're seeing hurricane conditions near the core. We're seeing hurricane force wind gusts right now here in southeast Florida, and those are all going to spread up the peninsula during the day today and tonight and through Monday, and then move into southern Georgia as the storm system weakens to a tropical storm. And then the rainfall threat is going to take over as the system moves on up into Alabama, the Tennessee, and Ohio valleys as we go later through the week. If you move to the next slide, you can see the tropical storm force wind speed probabilities are basically showing you what I just said. Tropical storm conditions are expected almost everywhere in the Florida Peninsula. The tropical storm conditions will be arriving here in central Florida, the Tampa area around early afternoon, and then up into North Florida tonight. Near the Georgia border overnight tonight, and then moving up into Georgia Monday morning. The chances of tropical storm force winds are quite large up here in much of southern Georgia. There's tropical storm watches warnings in effect for much of the inland parts of eastern Alabama, Georgia, and even on up into parts of Tennessee. If you move on to the next slide, the storm surge still remains our biggest threat, especially down here from Captiva down to Cape Sable, where we can see 10 to 15 feet of storm surge inundation, and that's going to be realized in the next few hours as Irma's center moves close by, and especially on the backside, those northwest winds are going to drive that storm surge into the coast there. 6 to 10 feet of storm surge to the north of that, and then 5 to 8 in the Tampa Bay area, and then 4 to 6 up here in the Big Bend of Florida. Not to be forgotten, we're seeing storm surge inundation of about 3 feet down here in southeast Florida, parts of Miami-Dade County. Also expecting 2 to 4 feet of storm surge inundation once you get north of Jupiter Inlet, all the way up through the rest of the Florida coast and up into Georgia and South Carolina, where there is a storm surge warning in place. Pending any questions, I'll turn it now to WPC for rainfall.
All right. One question, I'm sorry, what are the storm surge estimates into Tampa Clearwater?
5 to 8 feet in Tampa Bay.
Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Dave Novak here from the Weather Prediction Center. Rainfall is yet another hazard with this event. We've already observed rainfall rates on the order of 2 to 4 inches an hour. This was just south of Melbourne in advance of this event. So the rainfall is fast and furious. As you can see on the map here, we're expecting rainfall totals of 8 to 15 inches with isolated 20 inches. across the Florida peninsula as Irma makes its slow trek up the west coast of Florida. That's today. Now tomorrow we're watching the Georgia area. Much of this rainfall in the order of 4 to 10 inches falling in a very fast time period. So we're watching tomorrow the threat of inland flooding increasing across Georgia. However, as we move further through time, the system should weaken. We're still monitoring the upslope regions in northern Georgia and western North Carolina and further west, but at this time, we're still just monitoring that, but our main focus here is Florida today and Georgia tomorrow. We go to the next slide here showing the flash flood potential. This is amazing, a very large high-risk area over Florida, basically the entire peninsula. Now as we move into Monday and Tuesday, again, we keep watching these areas, particularly Georgia and South Carolina, and perhaps into the mountainous regions of southern Appalachians. And then later in the week, we'll be watching these two areas further to the north, and we'll keep you updated on that. Do want to mention this is going to cause some issues, severe, moderate to major flooding here, localized record flooding possible, particularly in this west central Florida area, near the Tampa Bay area, and then moving into north central Florida. That's our greatest risk that we're watching. Looking at rapid rises likely to begin on Monday. And then as we were mentioning, as the system moves further north, the river flood threat could expand into portions of Georgia and South Carolina by midweek. Flooding will impact roads, homes, infrastructure, and post-storm response activities. So pending any questions, that concludes my portion of the brief.
No questions, thank you. Secretary Perry, if you'd like to.
Yeah, Ron, thanks.
Comments as well.
Secretary, thank you to all of you, the administration, the president. We tip our hat to you. We know that this is very extraordinary. Having been through a few of these while I was down in Texas, to be faced with what you're faced here, you all look amazingly perky to have not gotten any more sleep than you have. So, but anyway, we had a cabinet meeting yesterday, and this was a very substantive part of the conversation. Obviously, and I don't want to get our focus off of what we need to be doing right here, and that's Florida. But we've also got recovery going on in Texas, in the Caribbean, the Virgin Islands, PR. Those areas are uniquely affected as well. And I know we've got some conversations going on. Elaine and I were on a electrical subsector coordinating council call. We do that at 5 o'clock every day on the pre-positioning here. So, and again, this storm, every storm's different. I try to share with people on as often as I can is every storm is different. So just take the manual and throw it out the window, unfortunately. But be prepared for a long recovery. Be prepared for some out-of-the-box things that we've never seen before. But with that said, I've been very comforted in seeing how this table and your counterparts across the states have functioned so well together. I've been on the call with Governor Scott a number of times over the course of the last 72 hours and as late as this morning, and to his staff and relaying to them, anything you're missing, let us know, and we're working to try to do that. So I don't want to get in the weeds, Brock, on some of the recovery efforts, but we got a lot of balls in the air right now. And saving people's lives, trying to stay focused on obviously the evacuation side of this, those that heeded that, and I think we hammered that. I know Governor Scott did, all of us did, as often and as with great clarity, and hopefully we will have as few people that we have to go back in and do rescues on. But again, this is going to be a completely different storm than anything we've ever seen before. It's going to throw us some curves along the way. We need to be prepared for that, and I know we're gaming out a lot of different things right now, Brock, but to each of you, Elaine, especially to your leadership and the work that you've done at DHS, and Brock, this isn't our first rodeo, unfortunately, not the first rodeo this year.
Exactly.
So
not going to be the last one either.
and it won't be. So the administration is really paying attention. All of the agencies that whether it's Alex's spot here who I'm sitting in, and they are truly paying as much attention, giving as much assistance as I've ever seen in my 14 years of being the governor and all of the events that we had. So again, we're not going to be perfect, but that's our goal. And thanks to each of you, and particularly relay back to the people that work with you, just how much, not only myself, but the entire administration, thank you for what you're doing. You're making a lot of difference in people's lives. And with that said, the hard work's in front of us. The recovery on Harvey, on this storm, is going to be long. It's going to be arduous. It's going to be costly. But when Florida and this country and the private sector come together, just like we're seeing in my home state, I'm confident that we will rebuild, and there's going to be a lot of rebuilding rather than restoration here. But we'll be stronger, we'll be better, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart for the professionalism and the work that you're doing. Thank you.
Thanks, Secretary. All right, Chris, let's get down to our state partners. That wraps up.
Next up,
Thank you.
FEMA Region 2. Go ahead, please.
Regional Administrator John Raven is with the governor at this time, but just to update you.
Thank you.
We are not going to do another sway. It sounds like the Vice President is not going to make it to this meeting, so when he comes, he'll just come to speak with you.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
that's it. That's it. Until
Thank
he
you.
comes there.
Okay, thank you.
Allow him to call it around a little bit while he's doing,
It's
instead of
not
just.
my call, it's actually his.
So do you want us to go to them, or do you
No,
want to?
I'm happy to do it.
Yeah, I just think if we have a little cover when doing meet and greet before you come.
You mean
to-
in this room?
Yeah, before you come to them.
I'm 98% sure.
Yeah, so,
So that's what will happen.
is there coming to talk to me? Is that what you're saying?
That's my understanding.
Okay.
You know how that is.
All right.
Bring it up to Mark Lauder, and Mark Lauder will go.
So,